Hello everyone. Scarlet and Violet has been out for a while, but I remember when it first came out there was a ton of speculation about new move pools. Pokemon often get new moves in new games, and a lot of people were hoping their favorite Pokemon got a new move that would be a huge buff, and some of them definitely did. Torterra got Shell Smash and Headlong Rush, making it a terrifying sweeper, and Alomomola got Flip Turn, which turned it from a do-nothing wall into a top-tier pivot. But some Pokemon that really should have gotten certain moves just didn't. I'm going to go over what I think are the top 5 Pokemon that got screwed over in Scarlet and Violet. Pokemon that not only does it make sense that they should get this move, but the absence of that move makes them a lot worse in competitive play. First up at number 5 is Frostmoth. Frostmoth is an awesome Pokemon. It's got the popularity and charm of Volcarona without being an absolute menace to all who have ever played competitive singles. It has one of the best abilities in the game, Ice Scales, which halves the damage dealt by special attacks with no downside at all. Despite mediocre stats in everything but special attack, this insane ability makes it bulkier on the special side than Ting Lu. But nobody uses Frostmoth as a wall, it's almost always a sweeper, thanks to having Quiver Dance. Quiver Dance boosts speed, special defense, and special attack by one stage. Many consider it the best setup move in the game. Quiver Dance is basically the only reason to use Frostmoth, but Bug and Ice is not a great offensive combination. The best defensive type in the game, Steel, resists both. That's why, despite Frostmoth being introduced in Generation 8, it didn't see any real usage in the main singles format overused until Generation 9, thanks to Terra. Now, Frostmoth can turn into an electric, fire, or ground type and destroy Steels with Terra Blast, or even use them as setup fodder. Frostmoth still isn't a popular choice by any means, but it's a valid threat in the tier that people respect when they see it. But there are a few moves that would make people respect Frostmoth a lot more. The main one is Roost. They gave a Pokemon with one of the best defensive abilities in the game no way to heal other than Rest. Other Moth Pokemon like Volcarona, Venomoth, and Mothim got Roost in previous generations, so why can't Frostmoth have it now? Frostmoth has solid supporting moves like U-Turn, Stun Spore, Defog, Mirror Coat, Light Screen, and Reflect. There are very legitimate reasons to use a supporting Frostmoth set, if only it could heal. Roost would also make the Quiver Dance sets much more threatening. Anyone who's ever faced a Volcarona can attest to this. The main governing body for competitive singles, Smogon, sorts Pokemon into tiers based on usage. Frostmoth is currently on the ban list of PU, meaning it got banned from PU for being too threatening as a sweeper, but doesn't even get enough usage in the never used tier to be considered part of that tier. If Frostmoth got Roost, I'd say it would instantly shoot up to the underused tier, and it would see a lot more usage in overused as well. The only reason Frostmoth isn't higher on this list is that a lot of Pokemon lost Roost when going from Generation 8 to 9, so although it's insane that Frostmoth didn't get Roost in Generation 8, in Generation 9 it seems like the developers really wanted Roost to be for birds only. I'm considering two things in this ranking, both how much of a buff the move would be, and how crazy it is that they don't get the move. Roost would be a massive buff, but I must admit it kind of makes sense that Frostmoth doesn't get it, at least in Generation 9. Next at number 4, we have Excadrill. Excadrill has been a strong Pokemon for a long time, being a top tier in Gen 5 overused and the most used Pokemon in Gen 6 overused. It fell off pretty hard after that, but it remains a respectable support Pokemon and sweeper in overused to this day, mostly thanks to the double speed and sand granted by its ability Sand Rush. Generation 9, though, is probably Excadrill's roughest generation yet. Lots of top-tier threats totally shut it down. Corviknight, Gliscor, Landorus, Zapdos, and Moltres in particular are really difficult. Basically, any flying type with decent defense or steel resistance is hard for Excadrill to get past with its ground and steel stabs. Rock Slide is an option, but with 75 base power and a 10% chance to miss, it really isn't amazing, and it doesn't help at all with Landorus, Gliscor, and Corviknight. Something that would actually help Excadrill is Ice Spinner, an 80 base power ice move with 100% accuracy. This move was added in Generation 9, but Excadrill didn't get it. Excadrill is literally a drill, spinning is what it does, and the developers were not sparing with the distribution of this move. They gave it to ice types like Weavile and Avalugg, sure, but they also gave it to seemingly random Pokemon like Dragonite, Bronzong, and Hisuian Lilligant. And they clearly weren't opposed to giving Ice Spinner to ground or steel types, since Iron Treads learns this as well. Anything even remotely adjacent to the idea of spinning got this move, except Excadrill. I can see why they gave it to Registeel. I suppose it's a ball and you could basically spin it around, but Bronzong? You can only really roll it on its side, that's hardly spinning at all. Excadrill absolutely deserves this move. Now, it wouldn't fix all of its problems. In fact, it wouldn't fix most of them. Excadrill would still struggle with Moltres and Corviknight, even though Ice Spinner would help with Zapdos, Landorus, and Gliscor. It would also be difficult for Excadrill to fit onto its moveset, as they already like to run Rapid Spin, Earthquake, Iron Head, Swords Dance, and Substitute. Even if Excadrill got Ice Spinner, it definitely wouldn't run it all the time. So the buff wouldn't be massive, but it would still be a buff, and Terra Ice Ice Spinner would be a seriously threatening set, especially with Swords Dance. I don't think it would change Excadrill's tiering placement. It's currently an underused and would probably stay there, but it probably would give it a nice little usage bump in overused. Now for another ground type. At number 3, we have Mamoswine. Mamoswine doesn't see much usage in overused, but it is viable. Thick Fat is a great ability, allowing Mamoswine to resist ice and be neutral to fire, and ground plus ice coverage is notoriously potent. With priority from Ice Shard, the utility of Knockoff, the ability to set Stealth Rock, and just powerful moves like Earthquake, Mamoswine is a threat to be respected, even with its low usage. Something that would give it a big usage bump, though, would be if it got Headlong Rush. This is a 120 base power ground type move that lowers both defenses when used, like close combat. It's most notably used by Great Tusk and Ursaluna, both powerful ground types, that you could imagine charging. But couldn't you imagine Mamoswine charging too? It has tusks, that's one of the things tusks are for. And they gave Headlong Rush to Torterra and Hariyama, so it's not like the developers were trying to make it a pseudo-signature move. And, by the way, I looked it up, and archaeologists believe that mammoths did charge, so this is real-life canon. Anyway though, if Mamoswine got Headlong Rush, it would do the same thing it does now, just better. It would be way harder for walls like Alomomola to switch in, and everything would just take a lot more damage. Now, power isn't Mamoswine's biggest problem, I'll admit. It's more so the mediocre speed and bulk. So I don't think giving it Headlong Rush would make it an overused staple, but it would certainly give it more usage in overused. Mamoswine is currently on the rarely used ban list. I think this change would get it bumped up to underused. Before we get into the top 2, if you're enjoying the video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. It helps out a lot. Alright, now for number 2, Dragapult. Now I know what you're thinking, Dragapult is really good. How can you say it got screwed over? How can you say that an absolute top tier got done dirty? And yeah, of course, Dragapult is really good. It has a ton of great sets, like Will-O-Wisp plus Hex with heavy duty boots, Choice Specs, Choice Band, and it gets to choose between Clear Body and Infiltrator, which are very solid abilities. It also just has amazing stats across the board. Particularly its base 142 speed makes it one of the fastest in the metagame, second only to Deoxys speed. All of these factors make it one of the most used Pokemon in the tier, and it's rightfully considered one of the best. But it's so close to being so much better. Dragapult mostly uses special attacks, despite having a mediocre base 100 special attack. The reason is that it wants to have a reliable Ghost-type stab move. Ghost is arguably the best offensive type in the game, and spamming Ghost attacks is a very effective strategy. Being able to use Hex and Shadow Ball makes it worth using the lower attacking stat on Dragapult. Its physical attack is a much more impressive base 120, but the only decent physical Ghost move it has is Phantom Force, a 2-turn move that's very easy to deal with since you can just switch into a resist. Some use Terra Blast Ghost to overcome this problem, but having to Terra just to hit with a stab type isn't ideal. If Dragapult got Poltergeist, the only problem it has would go away. Poltergeist is a whopping 110 base power physical ghost attack with 90 accuracy. It does have the significant limitation of failing if the target doesn't have an item, but this is still an incredible physical ghost stab. Poltergeist was handed out freely to a ton of ghost types, both on the physical and special side. Ceruledge, Guldengo, Pecharunt, Hisuian Zorark, Decidueye, and tons more get it. Dragapult is one of the very few ghost types that was left out, and there doesn't seem to be any good reason for this. If Dragapult got Poltergeist, it could finally utilize Dragon Dance more effectively. Its choice band sets would also be insane. It wouldn't have to rely on Terra Blast Ghost anymore, meaning it could use a different Terra Blast. Imagine a choice band Dragapult with Dragon Darts, Poltergeist, and Terra Blast fighting to blow up your Kingambit. It would go crazy. Probably too crazy, in fact. Not many people currently consider Dragapult ban-worthy, but it has been in the ban conversation before. Suddenly opening up a ton of new sets, especially with one of them being a setup set, would probably be more than the tier can handle. I think Dragapult would be banned from Overused and sent to rot in Ubers, the overused ban list. So in a weird way, Poltergeist would nerf Dragapult, at least in competitive singles. It would go from the king of Overused to a poor beggar in Ubers. Now, before we get to number 1, I want to give an honorable mention to Garchomp, because people would be screaming at me in the comments if I didn't include it. For generations, tons of people have wanted Garchomp to get Dragon Dance, and yeah, it absolutely deserves it. Most Pokemon that even resemble a dragon get Dragon Dance, and they even gave it to some random Pokemon like Crawdont for some reason. And Garchomp already learned Swords Dance, so we know Garchomp isn't opposed to dancing. The reason I didn't include it on this list is that I just don't think it would move the needle much on how good Garchomp is. Garchomp uses Loaded Dice Scale Shot plus Swords Dance when it wants to set up, and it works pretty well. Many Garchomp would definitely prefer Dragon Dance, so they don't have to hit a target to boost speed, and they couldn't have that speed boost blocked by fairy types, but the diminished attack boost from going Swords Dance to Dragon Dance would make it easier to deal with by a lot of other means. I don't see Dragon Dance Garchomp being that amazing. A buff for sure, but Garchomp usage probably wouldn't see much of an increase, at least after the initial hype died down. Now with that out of the way, for number 1, the Pokemon that got screwed over the absolute most by not getting a move it totally should get, it's Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres has only done one thing since its introduction in Generation 8. It sweeps. It has solid stats across the board, Nasty Plot to boost special attack, Agility to boost speed, and Fiery Wrath, a really nice signature move that's just Dark Pulse plus 10 base power. Its ability, Berserk, is also great for sweeping. If Moltres is hit by an attack that puts it below 50% health, it gets a +1 special attack boost, but only if an attack does it. You can't activate Berserk yourself by using Substitute. And if an attack damages you when you're already below 50%, you won't get the boost again. So getting hit by a weak move when your Moltres is at 40% won't do anything. You have to be above 50% and then get hit by a move that leaves you at below 50%. Usually this means you just get one boost. If you could click Roost, you could heal up and get this boost many times. But you can't, because Galarian Moltres doesn't get Roost. Why, you might ask? That is a great question. It's a bird. Almost every bird in the game, with very few exceptions, gets Roost. Regular Moltres gets Roost, and the two look very similar. I would say equally bird-like. All the Galarian birds actually got screwed out of Roost, but it doesn't hurt the other two nearly as much as it hurts Galarian Moltres. If Moltres got Roost, its sweeping potential would drastically increase. It would be so much harder to deal with than it is now. You could boost up just by spamming Roost and eating attacks. It would be harder to weaken and thus harder to pick off with priority, especially Sucker Punch and Thunderclap, which you could heal on and cause to fail. Some Moltres would still run Agility, Nasty Plot, and 2 attacks, but even those sets would get better thanks to the massive amount of respect the mere possibility of Roost would command. Galarian Moltres is currently on the underused ban list, but I believe if it got Roost, it would easily get enough usage to be part of the overused tier. I don't think it would get banned from overused, but it's honestly possible. It would be a really tough sweeper to deal with, especially with Terra and its solid natural bulk. Well, there's my list. Let me know in the comments if you think there are other Pokemon that really should get a move, and how good you'd think they'd be if they got it. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.